What is going on, everyone? Welcome into the Oregon Ducks channel here, the live post game right here on the Voice of College Football. Oregon just defeated the California Golden Bears. It's quack quack. That is indeed. Tonight we have our guy here as usual, Derek. How you doing, Derek?
Hey, doing well, Ben. Nice victory this weekend. I think it was went about as expected. Nice weekend. Can't complain about a 44-point win.
Yes. We're not going to go into the score projections, but you guys suck as usual. I hate this game.
Hey, man, it's any given Saturday. You never really know how this stuff goes, man. It's you've had some unlucky breaks up to this point.
Yeah. Some very unlucky ones. The game went about what we were thinking it would. Overall, some better things, some worse things. But that first quarter was an absolute just disaster for everyone on both sides. For Cal, for Oregon, it was just a nightmare.
Yeah, man. I mean, you could tell it took some getting used to. I think it was obviously, they say it never rains in Autzen, but unfortunately this weekend, I think that kind of had a little bit of a hand in that first quarter there. I think there was 2 interceptions thrown in the first something like 3 minutes of the game. Oregon matched their season turnover total in the first 6-7 minutes of the game period. So it was a sloppy start on both sides of the ball, but it was kind of to be expected. I mean, it's kind of one of those games. It's a sandwich game between Utah and what we have in USC next week. So it's kind of easy to let your foot off the gas in a sense, but they got it figured out. I mean, I feel like that's the coaching. In previous years we've seen kind of things like this happen, and they kind of snowball into the second, third quarter. All of a sudden we're in the fourth quarter talking about a one possession game. It's not happening this year. In my opinion, I'm biased toward the current coaching staff, but I feel like they've done a wonderful job up to this point, just kind of managing the in-game adjustments and such. But yeah, man, it was a comfortable victory this week. I think everybody who, is a Ducks fan this week, they should be happy given the score.
Yeah, and that's why I just brought up the first quarter, because that first quarter made you kind of nervous, because that's it. First play, pass to Tez Johnson, just slipped out of his hands, bobbled up, defender intercepted it. Then they threw a pick 5 plays later. Then we fumbled it, and they did a scoop and score for a touchdown or whatever. It was like, what are we doing here? But it was just weather. But then they kept going back to the same thing. They kept doing pitch plays after that. No, you guys are going to learn to handle this. It doesn't matter if the ball's wet or not.
Yeah.
They kept doing it.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the difference that we've seen in the last couple of years. You know what I mean? So, for example, the first thing I can think of, the first play of the game, maybe it was the second, excuse me, but it was that Tez pass, right off Tez's hands into the possession of the defense. We kind of turned it over, but then the next possession, the first thing we're doing is trying to feed Tez the ball, and it's just it kind of goes back to one of those things kind of similar to last weekend where Bucky fumbled the ball early on and we got the ball right back to Bucky. It just it shows a trust in your guys. You know what I mean? It's this group of guys, yeah, sure. There was a couple, unfortunate turnovers there in the first quarter, but it was kind of understanding the fact that, it's an isolated event. It's happened in the first quarter of one game against one opponent one time. That's all it is. And they kind of moved on from that. In previous years, we haven't been able to see that separation happen. But, this week, that's absolutely what we saw. And, they kind of responded the way we would expect them to.
Well, yeah, and I think 100% is just with the pitch, kind of the fumble, or the pitch, the drops, the miscommunications, the one pass to Tez, then just kept going right back to him no, you got this. Because some players get shy immediately, especially when it turns into a mistake like that, or opportunity for the other team. So then for him to do what he did after that shows more. And much like Mark 100%. Tez was definitely the player of the game in this one. They were targeting him like just crazy. I don't know if that's. I'm sure there's a schematic reason for that, whether people were trying to focus on Franklin, so they just let Tez do some different routes today. I have no idea in that, but
yeah, I mean, to me, what it kind of looked like is it seemed to me like the game plan was try to shut down the run and limit the big plays through Troy Franklin. Unfortunately, they failed to realize that there's a Tez Johnson who's a perfectly capable receiver sitting in the slot, and kind of moving all over that offense. They had no answer for him. They had an answer for Troy to an extent. I mean, he still finished with 6 catches, 79 yards, and a touchdown. But in terms of what you'd expect, you don't expect Tez Johnson to go for a $180 and 2 touchdowns on 12 receptions. That's an uncanny stat line. So he had a hell of a game, especially considering that first, drop in the first quarter leading to that quick KO turnover and points.
That's the big thing. After that first one, then to do that is like, okay, like, all right, welcome to the party, Tez.
Yeah, it just goes back to the depth. You know what I mean? For the first time, Troy Franklin is that true wide receiver one, which we haven't been able to have in the past. We've had our Dylan Mitchells, which he set some school records in certain areas and it was an excellent wide receiver. But it's like he's kind of that next level up, if that makes sense. And you know what I mean? The fact that we have someone behind him who's perfectly capable of carrying the load makes all the difference in the world. That's something we haven't really had in the past. And I think it's going to end up paying dividends before the season's over.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just in the, by, what was it? I mean, the starting offense went out. Basically, most of the starting offense went out 12 minutes left in fourth quarter, something like that.
Basically to start that fourth quarter, it was pretty much the 0-2 that was out there.
And I do want to take a second. I actually meant to start the show with this, and I kind of it's sitting up here boxed and starred, and I kind of skipped over it. For those who actually were watching the game on the glorious Pac-12 network, we do want to send best wishes to Cal's running back Thomas, who got carried out on a stretcher during the third quarter. I haven't heard anything or didn't see anything, and they didn't specify anything. I'm going to guess he got probably a concussion or potential. They're worried about a neck injury, and that's why they put him on a stretcher. Because, yeah, he just was laying there on the ground. He hit the back of his head pretty good. So, not sure there, but best wishes to him. And hopefully there's no long-term negative effects or injury from that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, part of the game. It's how it goes, and it's just unfortunate. And that made me go, yeah, we need to wrap this up and get our guys out too.
Yeah, it's just, it's an unfortunate part of the game. It was kind of one of those things where initially you look at it and it doesn't necessarily appear to be as severe as you think. And then all of a sudden, a player's not moving and we're talking about bringing an ambulance out to the field and stopping the play for, minutes on end. It's a scary situation. So, yeah, we definitely wish Mr. Thomas all the best.
And, yeah, outside the first quarter, which was, again, extremely, for the most part, pretty sloppy, then they just kind of seemed to get in rhythm. Also, I think the rain stopped quite a bit. The actual downfall seemed to stop quite a bit. And after that, it was just seemed to be clicking. And again, I mean, props to Cal. They came out with a good game plan, that running hurry up to try to offset pressure and, adjustments and rotation on our D lines. But, at the end of the day, Cal doesn't have the same level of, talent but I mean, they still had opportunities.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it was a game we kind of saw that early in the first half where it never felt like Oregon was in danger of losing this game. At least that's not kind of the urgency or the vibe of the game that I had gotten at this point. But in reality, you know, there were certain points where if you look at the scoreboard, one right bounce happens to Cal's way, and this is an entirely different game. You know, so in the first half, it was kind of nice they were able to bounce back, and it seemed like they were able to collect themselves a little bit. But it was one of those situations that I felt like, you know, the better team was going to win this game, and I don't think there was any question to anybody who watched this game who the better team was.
Yeah, I mean, again, if we just ignore the whole first quarter, at the halftime, I was very comfortable. After the first quarter, I was kind of going, you know, this might be a close game going into mid third quarter or something like that. But yeah, halftime, you know, Oregon, it was 35-13. 7 of that was the scoop and score by Cal. So Oregon had only given up two field goals at that point. And then, as we were talking about it earlier, quickly, by the end of the game, it oddly, like you said, it didn't feel like that much, but it felt like more at the same time. As we were talking about, you know, Oregon put up 600 yards of offense, and Cal put up 286. I mean, Cal put up yardage. They moved the ball. They just didn't capitalize, like with the fumble, the interception, you know, multiple things went against them too.
Yeah, and I mean, in reality, it's kind of what you would expect in this situation. So if we take a look at Oregon's, you know, season total, their averages on defense, it kind of fits right in with both points scored and total yards given up throughout the game. So I mean, it's nothing that's crazy shocking. I feel like, you know, overall they kind of did what we would expect them to do. I mean, you know, I know we're not going to get into score projections tonight, but we all kind of projected it was going to be a low scoring total for these offenses in terms of Cal's this week, and it kind of was. You know, they definitely moved the ball, but in hindsight, it never felt like they had control whatsoever. So, you know, there were a couple chunk plays that I can think of off the top of my head that took place, but in reality, it didn't feel like they were constantly in the red zone, constantly, you know, threatening in Oregon territory. That's not really what it felt like. So, I mean, yeah, overall, it was a great performance by the D2.
Oh yeah, no, the defense. I think that's something we saw outside of. Yeah, there were those chunk plays, some of the play action that Cal was doing. Their guy Mendoza, for coming out of nowhere, basically as like Cal was his only scholarship offer school, like full ride scholarship, and he took it out of Florida. Like they said, he was from Miami originally. For him to be like the third quarterback Cal's playing this year, him to sit in the pocket and get hit on some of those play actions and still complete it like 15 yards down the field was impressive. I mean, I'll give him full credit for that because he was getting rocked on a bunch of those play action ones. He was still completing them down the field. I mean,
yeah, I mean, if we really think about it, he had a great game, you know, and I know not a lot of people are going to take a look at the final score and say they had a great game per se. I mean, Cal wasn't able to crack 300 total yards of offense, but given kind of the expectation of the Oregon defense and what we would expect out of, you know, Cal's quarterback performance tonight, I would say he exceeded expectations. You know, unfortunately, he was never able to kind of be in that situation to win the game or keep it close. It was one of those things where the talent gap was taken over. But at the same time, I don't think he had a bad performance. He had a great performance, really. I mean, he was a solid quarterback. There were a couple turnovers there that, you know, we very well know could have bounced the other way. But, you know, overall, he had a solid performance tonight. It was just more of a credit to Oregon's defense, I think, was able to kind of stifle anything that Cal was able to get going at any point throughout this game.
yeah, I mean, I just pulled it up on the side screen. We can pull it up too on the main screen. I was just trying to remember the guys that one of the guys he was throwing to. He had his main target was Hunter, Jeremiah Hunter, but it was his outside receiver who kept going against I believe it was Florence, and Florence was getting beat a couple times, and the guy was Trond Grizzle. He kept throwing those back shoulders on the sideline, and the guy kept coming up with them. I was like, "Can we stop this man?" Like,
It's kind of funny because he only had 4 receptions for 50 yards, which is nothing
Yeah.
crazy throughout the game, but it kind of felt like it was running the same patterns every single play. And that defense, it was like, don't get me wrong, I understand at that point you're kind of running a pad there where you're giving the receiver some grace. You're trying to keep all plays in front of you at that point, but at the same time, it felt like he was running the same patterns over and over, and the success rate felt the same, every time, even though it was 4 receptions.
Yeah. It's not a ton, but each time he did it, it was like, come on, can we stop this? It's like one of those. It's like when a team just runs the same play over and over and over again. It's like, well, we will until you stop it. And we didn't stop it. I think they kind of stopped trying to do it because at that point they needed to move the ball better. But that's it. I the only other concern I had was, and we can look at this here, was, let me pull this banner off here. Once again, though, and I think some of this was the weather, this ugly number here. There was a couple that were, kind of wishy-washy, of course, but like the block field goal offsides that took away the touchdown that they would have had in the first quarter. That hurt. Of course, it turned into a pick, so it didn't really matter anyways. But at the same time, point is, jump the gun offsides.
Yeah, it's just kind of the fact that if you really look back at it, our first 2 penalties of the game resulted in 14 points, given the PATs were wiped off the board. So that's kind of shitty, when we talk about untimely penalties, the first 2 of the game were absolutely what we're talking about. But, it kind of felt like as the game went on, that's something they were able to shore up a little bit. I feel like there was probably a couple sideline discussions that took place that really let them know that the shit's unacceptable, especially when we're talking about, we're sitting at home field advantage, the Autzen crowd, they're typically their 12th man in a sense. And it didn't seem like it right away, especially early on in that first quarter. But, given the untimely penalties, given the points that were wiped off, I think they were able to recover in the penalty department really nicely. It's just, when we're playing good teams, I think it's knowing that, if we have 2 penalties that wipe 14 points off the board, there's a real chance that it comes to bite us in the ass significantly more than it did in this game.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of the ones at the beginning, again, I think you could maybe account for somewhat to the weather. Like some of the holds, like guys slipping a little bit, grabbing on the O-line. And yes, in this game, they were able to overcome it. Specifically, like there was in the second quarter, I think it was second or it was end of the first. I can't remember exactly, but it was like 2nd and 37, 50-yard touchdown to Tez Johnson. Like, okay, whatever. But you can't do that in other games. That's the whole point is like, yeah, you got to clean those up. In the second half, they did clean them up quite a bit, but yes, he might be already getting there. he might jump on later.
Yeah, well, if you guys haven't been able to tell, Ben and I, there's nobody that can control Spaz. That man is very much his own man. So wherever he is tonight, he might just pop in later at some point in the stream. Who knows?
He's lurking somewhere.
He's lurking. Right. It's about the best way to put it.
But as to, every other stat, it's just this one that the turnovers. It was just a sloppy game in the first half. You can fix those if you can get rid of the weather. It's just these that still are a concern. And as noted, you guys text about it. It only happened once tonight.
Mm-hmm.
But Lewis kicking it out of bounds on kickoffs. I don't know what that is. That is.
I know you. When you replied, you were like, "Yeah, Spaz always bitching," but I'm like, to be real honest, it's truly typically more of an observation. Like I feel like this is something that I haven't seen happen in years prior.
Not this much.
Especially
Not this much. Not this much.
yeah, I don't know the stats on it, so I'm not saying this for hard fact, but I feel like we've seen this in at least 3 to 4 different games this year. At some point where a ball's been kicked out of bounds, I don't know what this is. I don't know if this is something where they're really trying hard to emphasize like a directional kick on kickoffs and limit big plays in the kickoff return, which we haven't seen yet this year. So I can't imagine why that's a focal point of emphasis. But yeah, I don't know. There's something going on where I don't know if it's like a mental thing at this point for Camden, if it's more of like a strategic thing. Not saying they're trying to kick it out of bounds by any stretch, but more so where like they're trying to strategically place the kick and it just happens to drift, 5, 8, 10 yards out of bounds. I don't know what the case is, but yeah, there's something going on with that. And as the year goes on, there's a very real chance that could come back to bite us in the ass. I'm hoping not. I'm hoping it's just a mental thing. He's able to get over it. All of a sudden, we could get back to SC next week, and Camden's back on his Camden stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It's been a concerning trend this year, to say the least, in my opinion.
Yeah, and and outside of I'm trying to think of any super long kickoff returns we've given, and I can't think of one outside of the Utah last week where they did get 50 yards on a return, but they did that trick. They did that trick play where they passed it backwards to the other guy in the end zone.
You're spot on. And, I'm going back to look at it. It looks like that is the longest return that's been given up in either punt or kick return this year, the play last week against Utah. So, yeah, I guess I don't really know what's going on. I mean, maybe it's a product of it's working and it just happens to be that we notice a few that kind of drift out of bounds. But I don't know, man. It's something about that doesn't sit right with me. So I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks here this gets shored up.
And he was 0 for 1 on field goal attempts, as I recall. But that's because they let him kick a 53,
I believe.
Was it 53?
I have a yes, it looks like it was a 53 missed.
Okay. I was like, I know it was in the 50, 54, something like that. And I was like, yeah. And in that weather, with it being wet, probably. But that shows the confidence level. Like, hey, let him try. Whatever. Our defense is doing good.
100%. And, I couldn't agree with you. I think that's 100% the confidence thing. I don't think by any stretch that's Dan going out there saying we expect him to hit this. I think it's more of like, hey, we know you're capable of it. So let's go out here and show that you can do it. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. We had some pretty shitty conditions if everybody was able to watch the game today between the winds and the rain, which, no excuse, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if there's wind or the rain. What matters is, the results, the stats at the end of the day. But, it was a tough situation to try to come in and get yourself mentally right on. It's one of those things. I feel like if he does hit that, it's a major confidence boost. If he doesn't hit that, we go back out on defense and we do what we'd expect him to do.
Yeah. It's kind of a whatever.
Yeah.
But, yeah. After Nick's not starting so hot, I mean, still 29, 38, 386, 4 touchdowns.
Well, and in reality, we talk about Bo Nix's performance. If we just want to start there, is this man had 6 touchdowns responsible for and 389 yards total. It's the epitome of kind of being a field general out there. I've seen him compared to like a point guard out there, and that's kind of what I feel like he is. You know what I mean? He's not the guy that's going out there every time and every throw feels magical and it feels like everything is resting on his back just because of the running back staple we've been able to have. But man, you want to talk about consistency. Bo Nix, he's someone I feel like I don't care who the defense is. I'm not saying we'd go out there and beat an Alabama, Georgia, Michigan. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not coming out here and quoting it. But, what I am saying is if that ever happens to be the case, Bo Nix is a quarterback, a person that I'm feeling very confident in having, kind of running things in terms of the offense.
Well, then it's just like it seems like almost every game he has like that one real moment, and that was earlier. And I texted in there going, "Holy shit!" Like magic. With like he ducked under the defenders, sidestepped the other guy, still threw it for a first down. I was like, yeah, those are those moments where you're like, everyone else would have gotten sacked or whatever. And he just has this movement just at random in the pocket to avoid people like that. And he just does it once at least every game, usually.
Yeah. And that's kind of the thing too. I wouldn't expect at any point that, there are not a lot of quarterbacks, I guess, in the country. What I'm trying to say is that, if they're in that certain situation, that I expect them to get out, have an expectation. But Bo Nix is just one of those dudes for whatever reason. Obviously, diehard Oregon fan, I'm going to be 100% biased. I have zero problem, kind of admitting that. But at the same time, he's just one of those dudes I trust. You know what I mean? We've seen it time and time again where these dudes, where the rush has been there, where he's been dead in the water, and somehow he's been able to escape scrambled for 5, 7, 10, 15 yards, whatever it takes. It's just, he is a gamer, man. And I don't care whatever defense we're ever playing at any point, if Bo Nix is the quarterback, I'm feeling very comfortable.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like they've been purposely running him this season at all. They've done it in the last couple of games, he gets the ball and then follows the running back as a blocker to get like 3 yards. But there hadn't been many like specific quarterback draw runs or anything. Like there's been a couple, but not like last year. They did do a couple of like 3 or 4 quarterback sneaks tonight. And that every time I saw that, and I specifically noted it here, it's not the same as last year, the way it looks, like how successful it is. And obviously it's different center this year. Obviously we don't,
JPJ,
so different line, but I noticed it last week specifically, and maybe you have, maybe you haven't. I noticed it specifically last week, especially the snap seems to come so fast that by the time Nix gets it, the center is almost already on the ground when he's blocking.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem to push. He just seems to snap and like fall forward for some reason. It seems like this weird timing with the snap or something. I don't know what it is. I noticed it last week a bunch. It didn't affect us at all, but it just was kind of like, it looked weird.
Yeah, like it creates a little twitch in the offense.
I don't know if that's by design or not, but it just seems, just off for some reason. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, we've seen JPJ have some like absolute pancake blocks this year. He's graded as a top 2 center in the country this year. But in reality, it is his first year starting, especially at center. You know what I'm saying? When he came into college, we didn't necessarily expect him to be a center. So the fact that he kind of took this up as a secondary position and then kind of ran with it as he figured out he could be really successful in it.
And doing a damn good job.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Right now, he's graded as the number 2 center in the country. So, if he decided to enter the draft this year for whatever reason, I mean, we're talking about probably a day 2 pick at worst. So it's one of those things where I feel like he's kind of getting his bearings still. It is a new position if we're really thinking about how he came into college, how he came out of high school, what he came into trying to be at Oregon. It just kind of fell that center was his position of choice. But yeah, overall he looks great, man. He's been a vital part to that O-line.
Oh yeah, no, the O-line again has done for the most part pretty phenomenal. Cal did do a good job of trying to limit the rushing game tonight. They were hitting hard. They were coming up and like whacking Bucky like relentlessly tonight. He was actually getting annoyed because he's like, what the hell?
I'm thinking of that first quarter, especially. There was 2 plays I can think of in specific. Bucky kind of hits that hole, and the first thing he gets is he gets slapped with a linebacker right in his face. And, it's like, he's not used to that per se, and that's not a toughness question. That's strictly like the line and so forth has been doing such a good job creating separation off these blocks that, that's not something that he's expecting. But in those first 2 drives in specific I can think of, there was twice where he was able to meet someone in the hole and the man got met head on. So, I mean, to Cal's credit, that's not an Oregon deficiency thing. I think what it was is Cal knew what they wanted to try to do in this game, and they tried to do it, and they did it successfully for a drive, maybe a drive and a half. At the end of the day, like I said, I mentioned it multiple times, the talent gap's kind of taken over, but it's more so one of those things where it's like more of a credit to Cal in those situations than it is a knock on Oregon. They did a wonderful job trying to establish their game early on defense.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's full credit to Cal and what they wanted to do. And they were pretty good at it for the first about quarter and a half. And then Oregon adjusted, and then just Cal kind of started to get a little worn out, especially by mid-third quarter. Cal started to get a little worn out. And that's what's going to happen. But, yeah, Cal came in with a good plan, especially trying to take Bucky out of the game.
Yeah, and I know early on we were kind of talking about it in our group chat a little bit here, but there's a lot of things that happened that it's really easy to look at Oregon and say, man, they weren't able to do X, Y, and Z. There was a couple sloppy turnovers that were happening. There were 2 drops, one by Tez, one by Jordan James early on that cost him a first down. There were a lot of things that kind of weren't going right early on in the game. It's just, once again, I kind of bring up the fact that it feels much different than in years previous, where in years previous, we kind of feel these things snowball into the second, third drives. All of a sudden we're in the second half, we're talking fourth quarter, and this is still a game. And, we're kind of looking at everybody going, what the fuck's going on? Because we are clearly the more superior team. But it's like there's something different about it, and I don't know what it is truly. I'm not in the locker room, but I'm going to choose to attribute it to the coaching style, the coaching staff. I think they do a wonderful job, righting the ship when stuff's starting to go wrong, like in that first quarter. You know what I mean? Even at halftime, I don't know if you were able to catch that Dan Lanning interview, but he kind of talked about how he was unsatisfied regardless of what the score is because Oregon has an expectation of themselves, and they weren't able to meet that in the first half. And I completely agreed. I was talking to one of my buddies. He does something similar to this with the Badgers. And we were talking about how Oregon's the score wasn't necessarily reflective of what the game looked like in the first half. That game very well could have been a 50-point margin in the first half. You know what I mean? It's just the fact that Oregon was very sloppy in terms of penalties, in terms of defense, missed tackles at points, in terms of their offense. There was a couple of Bo missed throws. So, regardless, he had an excellent game. It's going to go well on his Heisman resume, but he did have a couple of missed throws. It did cost him 14 points in hindsight. It didn't hurt him this game, but there's going to become a point where it does hurt him. It just, there are good things and there are bad things. It's tough with a game like this. You want to look at the scoreboard 63-19. And, if you just look at the scoreboard, you say that's an absolute drubbing. There's nothing more you could have done. Then you and I are going to look at it critically from an inside standpoint and say there are a lot of things we could have done differently. So I don't know. It is what it is. It's I think we've figured out that Oregon's a great team. They make adjustments when they need to. They do what they need to the teams that they're playing that week. It's just there are always going to be things that we feel like we can clean up, and we saw quite a few of them this week.
Oh, no, 100%. And that's what we were saying earlier, too, is I don't think Nix would have been out there as long, had thrown as much as he did, and then have Ty Thompson even go out and throw 8 passes for a touchdown, too. I think Lanning was not happy with the team as a whole and was like, nah, we're not done here. Because he didn't need to run up another touchdown. A rushing touchdown, fine. He didn't need to throw for a touchdown at that point in the game. There was no need to throw for a touchdown, That was just especially on Wilcox, after Oregon had just honored Wilcox Sr., his dad. And was wearing the sticker on their helmets. So it was he was just upset with the team, I think, overall, the performance they did, especially the first quarter.
And that's kind of what I'm saying. That's more along the lines of what I'm alluding to. I know, before we jumped on stream tonight, we were kind of talking about differential between first half and second half yardage. And overall, Oregon was able to move the ball more effectively in the first half, although it didn't feel like it at times. It was just, I don't know. It felt like early on Oregon was very disgruntled in terms of both offense and defense. There were some missed plays. Bo missed a couple plays. I don't know if you noticed, Bucky missed a couple holes in the first 2 drives of the game. It looked like he tried to bounce some things that weren't meant to be bounced. Who knows what would have happened in those situations. But like we said, the main thing here is that they were able to make adjustments. It felt like those adjustments were made very early on. It felt like those adjustments were made almost immediately, at least in my perspective, at least. Like there were situations where Oregon went 3-and-out on one occasion. They went 5-and-out on the second occasion, and they were able to bounce back from that, and they scored on both the following possessions. So it's the fact that the coaching staff is able to kind of get their message across to these dudes and make these adjustments mid-game. Not something we necessarily saw the last couple of years.
No, 100%. I mean, even if we've gone in at halftime tied, the second half I would have expected to have just destroyed them. We didn't win comfortably at the half and then just continued to destroy them. Cal had that one good drive coming out of halftime where they moved the ball effectively, and then the defense immediately made adjustments. And that's exactly what we were saying. Every side of the ball has made immediate adjustments. As soon as they see something, people are tweaking things, going, okay, no, we're not doing that anymore. And that's been one of the biggest improvements this year, even from last year, let alone in years past.
Yeah, 100%. It feels like, I don't know if you feel the same way. I mean, I know this is something we haven't necessarily talked about, but I feel like in years past, what it's been, if there has been an adjustment, it's always been at halftime that it's been able to make. If at halftime they were able to make an adjustment successfully, Oregon was successful in the second half. I feel like what the difference here this year is they're trying to make these adjustments on the fly. It doesn't matter if it's the first quarter, second quarter, fourth quarter, what the situation is. It feels like they're trying to make these adjustments in game, and they're a little more meticulous than in years past. I felt like in years past they were schematically trying to change things at halftime. If that worked, great. If it didn't work, we're probably not going to have a very, fun second half. This year, what it feels like is something happens on the field. They take a look collectively at the coaching staff and say, all right, what needs to change this next drive to change things? They meet up a little bit, make these changes, or attempt to make these changes at least out on the field and try to see that finished product. So I don't know if maybe it's a thing, like I said, where I'm feeling a little more biased than usual, just because coaching situations, we got our guy, I think as a collective, we really like, but it feels like I feel a difference in terms of the coaching 2 years past. I don't know if you feel the same way.
No, I think what we got right now is great, and that's why we've said it before too, and that's why we said it before, especially coming into the season, and we've said it already before, like maybe a couple weeks ago. We didn't know how Stein would do after Dillingham left. Stein had never been a full-time OC, never called plays by himself, and already I see him making adjustments, and it's like it's a different style, but it's like the offense in the sense of production hasn't lost a beat. And that's credit to Dan Lanning in picking these people and going, this is the guy I want. I like what he says. I like his style. I like his vision, and that's credit then to Lanning also. So he's picking the staff members. He's in charge of the staff members. Michigan guy trolling us. The head coach is in charge of the staff members on your coaching staff. But I don't know why he's in here. Okay. It's like, I don't know why he's in here. No, they already have the signs. They don't need the Stallions anymore.
Yeah, man.
They already have the signs.
Makers. What are you talking about?
Those have been printed out for months. Anyways, but yeah, it's just the in-game adjustments, and that's a big thing. And Lanning's picking the right people. Now they're getting the players that they want and that they need to run the schemes that they're trying to do. And that's making a huge difference. Not like last year's team defensively wasn't talented. They just did not fit the scheme that Lupoya was trying to run.
It's just a different type of athleticism. So, I mean, for example, in the secondary, it feels like a very similar type of secondary that they were shooting for in the Cristobal, era as to compared to what they're shooting for now in the Lanning defense. But it's like, for me, it kind of feels like the linebacker play. For example, we came into this year and we moved Jamal Hill, who, he had some safety snaps last year, turned into a primary linebacker for us this year. Brought in a dude like Justin Jacobs, has a guy like Bryce Betcher that has played significant snaps this year. Jeffrey Bassa has obviously stepped up into his role. That dude has become an absolute captain on the defensive side of the ball. It's just, I feel like that's the position of emphasis right now. Obviously, don't get me wrong. What I'm not trying to say is like the defensive line hasn't improved, because it has significantly since last year. Just bringing in Jordan Burge, having dudes like Brandon Dorless out there, Tuya Odi. The dude has been an absolute beast as a true freshman this year. It's just like the linebacker play is, to me, what's felt a little bit different. And it's paid dividends. The Oregon defense has been absolutely solid all year long. If the season's going to continue to be successful going forward, that's who we're going to need to be successful, is that linebacking core. I know we talk a lot about the secondary, we talk a lot about the pass rush, but in my eyes, it's something I've talked about all year long. It's something I'm going to continue to talk about. I feel like the linebacker play is going to be the group that is going to make the difference between a college football playoff team and a Pac-12 championship participant, maybe. It comes back down to how these guys play and how these guys perform, at least in my eyes at this point of the year.
Well, no, the linebacker play is definitely a lot different this year. Last year, Sewell was amazing. Lowe had been unproven, but those guys could not track receivers like our linebackers now. They just could not keep up with some receivers or tight ends across the field. That we saw that very early on last year, because again, it just didn't fit the system schematically that needed to be run by Lanny and Lupoy. And and we all love Sewell. Sewell's an amazing linebacker. Lowe has been doing pretty damn good down in Arizona. He's been looking pretty good. He looks crazy as ever, but he's still trying to kill people on the field. That's what he does.
Yeah, man. It's never been an athleticism thing for that man. It's been 100% a can you control yourself and can you fit the scheme of what we have going on here? And unfortunately, at Oregon, that wasn't the case. In Arizona, he still looks like he's flying around with his head cut off. It is what it. There are benefits to having players like him on the roster. Don't get me wrong. So he's doing his thing down there. I have no hate for that man.
Yeah, no, and none at all. I mean, again, he'd been injured for a couple of years. He saw the signs last year, I think, a lot, because he was always out of place. He just kind of felt, okay, I definitely don't fit this now, and so he moved on. And hey, that's fine. Players can do that, and he just needed to go somewhere different, and that's totally fine. I've seen him in games. I'm like, yep, there he is, just running around doing his thing. The you brought up Birch, and actually, I totally forgot about that, because Birch went out with an injury, and the announcers said it on TV. I think they said it wrong, because it looked like Birch got hit in the ribs by friendly fire by another defender with the helmet, and I don't think he came back in. That I recall, I don't think he came back in.
I don't think so, and I'm going through the team's reports post game here, just between the various game reporters we have. It doesn't look like we have anything new on Jordan Birch, which isn't necessarily a good thing for Oregon fans. Not a bad thing either. It's just, as you all know, they don't disclose injuries very often, nor the extent of what injuries they do have. But I'm not able to see anything. It doesn't look like he did come in post leaving for the injury he had this week. So, it'll be important to watch kind of Monday going forward, Tuesday, see if he's at practice, because, the pass rush is going to be absolutely crucial going into the USC week.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And he's been pretty effective. I mean, maybe not even the stat wise, but he's been effective. So hopefully it was just kind of like precaution, like, okay, we don't need to risk that. Let's take you out. Let's ice you up, and you're good for the game, at this point. But yeah, maybe remember when you said his name, I was like, oh yeah, he went out. Other than that, I don't recall anyone getting dinged up that I can think of during the game.
What I'm going through here, I do not see anybody that has missed time that is any concern.
Which is good to hear, because that's the last thing we want, especially in a game against, with all due respect to Cal, in a game against Cal, we don't want to lose a player.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you can get out of this game with a healthy dub, the score sheet looks good. Everybody is able to do everything they need to do, and you're healthy going into the following week. It's a win. So it's a win on all fronts this week, considering what Jordan Birch is potentially dealing with.
Well, then we'll give this a final wrap here, quick on the Cal part of it, and the finals: Oregon 63, Cal 19. 19 points literally falls like in the middle of where all of us, I think, thought they would score. I think I said 17 and most people said 24. So pretty much right in the middle. So not too bad. Not too bad.
3 out of the 4 of us were within 2 points of the Cal score. So I think in terms of what Cal was able to do, it's about as expected. It wasn't necessarily pretty at all points, but like I said, a football game is a long game. Things are going to happen regardless of the situation. It kind of went as expected on all fronts. So, yeah, no complaints here.
Yeah, again, remember, too, a lot of people, too, have to remember, and we even have to remember, while you're watching the game, you're not really thinking about it. This is the last time we're going to play Cal for who knows how long.
Yeah, potentially to a bowl game and, how many odd years.
Yeah, or a random non-con schedule or something like that. I mean, that's it. Those teams are going to give us everything they got, even if we're not, and vice versa to a degree, because it's like, hey, the last time. And when I remember it after the games, but I don't think about it during the games.
Yeah, I think a lot about these scrub teams, like the teams that are really bad, particularly Stanford, Cal, Oregon State in particular. I feel bad for these teams, Cal and Stanford going to the ACC, Oregon State going to the Mountain West 2.0 tops. It's tough, man. It's sad for certain fans. Some of us get to go to the Big Ten, continue to, play some perennial powerhouse teams throughout the year. Others of us go and play Wyoming on a Thursday night. It is what it is.
Oh, wow. Shots fired on the Wyoming game. Where Oregon State plays tonight, too. There it is. Do. They play. Oh, yeah. I want to watch UCLA at Arizona, too. Oregon State at Colorado. That is coming up. Oh, it's already running. Both the games already started.
I believe it just kicked off here within the last, 10 minutes or so?
The UCLA, Arizona. Oregon State started about 50 minutes ago.
Oh, okay.
So I will have to jump to that also, as well as our chat has been rambling here. USC has no defense, chat. Get over it. I don't even think we need to discuss this. We know USC has no defense. They gave up 49 to Cal last week.
What more do you people need to understand their defense is non-existent? I mean, Cal's offense is inept. Let's be real honest, and to give up damn near 50 points to these guys, completely unacceptable.
They gave up 36 to the pig farmer.
36.
We gave up 6.
The man could not find the end zone against a real D. I don't know, man. We'll see next week. I'm gonna rephrase. We'll talk about it Tuesday, obviously, but I have some words.
Yeah, thinking about that for Tuesday. Also, please make sure every Tuesday, right here on the Oregon channel for the Voice of College Football, 9 p.m. Central, 7 Pacific, the Oregon Ducks live show. And this week is USC week. Love it. Don't you dare do that symbol. Don't you ever do that symbol here on this show. We may or may not have some people joining us. I don't want to put anyone under the bus, but yes, this is USC week. So on Tuesday, we will be previewing that game. And I just am seeing the score now. Wow. Even yardage, 484, both teams. Dang.
I know you're just a little bit behind. Washington's about to close that gap a little bit there.
Oh, yep. See, I did it again. And I'm like, it went off live. I hate that.
Hey, chat. Fuck the Huskies. If you whisper it, Ben, it doesn't count. That's what I heard.
If you whisper it. That's me. Okay, so chat. Me and Derek were talking about it. So this is not projecting one way or the other. This is just asking the question of, do we just hate the Huskies that much we want them to lose at USC, or do we want them to win? Because if they lose, USC will be higher ranked when we can beat them next week. Or just watch USC be miserable, and then we can beat USC and make them more miserable next week. Also, it's kind of a real toss up in my head. I'm not sure which way I want it to go. I really don't care either way, but at the same time, I'm like,
I'm gonna be honest. I'm kind of a little more siding with Dave here. Big Dave says "fuck the purple pussies," and I'm gonna be real honest. I
was not putting it on the screen to not put the word up, but you just went ahead and said it. So I'm like,
no, man. I said the purple pussies. I whispered it. Doesn't count. Mark already established.
No, it's twice.
No. It doesn't count. Everybody, it's fine. Everything's fine. But yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe it's just because we lost and I'm a little extra salty. But I would love nothing more to watch USC come out and win this game, and then we go and obviously be USC's ass next week.
See, this is my thought too. It's like, I don't think it matters if USC is ranked, say, 18th, or if they're ranked 25th or unranked. I don't think it's going to make a difference. But if we do our business, Washington does theirs, and then we could play a number, say 4 Washington, like 4 versus 5 in the Pac-12 championship. I think that's a bigger statement. So that's why I'm kind of at a toss-up, though, of like,
Yeah,
it's tough. It's tough. I kind of do hope Washington beats USC, though, just to go, remember, USC, you and UCLA decided to destroy this conference first. And so now Oregon and Washington are the best. Just to sucker punch them, to remind them that they're still not that good.
Yeah, I know we were torn on it a little bit before the show when you and I were talking about it a little bit, Ben, but in hindsight, I get it. It's probably better for Oregon in terms of the playoffs for Washington to win this game. Oregon to win out, go into the Pac-12 championship, beat Washington, and then they're probably a playoff team, sure. It's strictly the hate I have for UW, where every time they step out on the field, that I'm like, I really hope you fucking lose today.
No. I'm the same way. Trust me. Remember, I watched that game. I had to do the post game with you.
Yeah,
that was off. I had to do the post game, I think, by myself last year, if I'm not mistaken, or I had our other guy that we had for a little bit, Brandon. It was awful to have to do that. You have to sit there and talk about it like 2 years in a row. It's terrible.
It's tough. So, we'll revisit this conversation come early December, hopefully.
That's not possible, Mark. That's not possible unless both of them just literally like, you know what, we're not going to finish this game and just walk off the field.
Hey, I'm with it. He has the right idea, though. Nobody wins. I'm kind of with that. I get it. I'm with it. I hope they say, screw it. Nobody wins. It's just a draw. They both put a loss in the column. No draws.
Well, we're going to see. We've got, what is it, like 5 minutes left in the game, basically?
Yep, 5:15 I'm sitting on right now.
Yeah, 5:15, same. Okay. That's always like 5 minutes. I couldn't remember what it was. So, well, we're going to see. We're going to have to wait to see how this plays out. And then, of course, we'll get the new AP, which doesn't really matter at this point anyways, but the new CFP rankings on Tuesday, right before we go live within the hour. So remember, please, everyone, join us here Tuesday, 9 p.m. Central, 7 Pacific for the Oregon Ducks Live weekly show. And again, we will be discussing USC week. Always a good hate week. It's almost like it's number 2. It's Husky hate week, USC hate week when we play them, and then the Little Beavers.
Yeah, it's to be honest, I know on social media little Beeps fans they want to act like they're something, but it's 1A, 1B with UW clearly a 1A, USC's a 1B, and then there's Oregon State who's down here somewhere, where it's kind of like every once in a while you play down to your competition. It happens every once in a while. But yeah, they're kind of just down here somewhere.
This is a good question. This is actually a good question. After Utah, we wondered that last week. Would Caleb even do it? Especially if they lost to Cal. If they lose to Washington, I think they know what's going to happen next week. So it's a good question, because actually I wasn't going to be surprised if he's after the Utah game again went, you know what, I'm done. But I mean, after this game, they're out of Pac-12 contention. Even they can't even. I don't think they're even going to contend for the title. So that's an interesting question. I think he will, but that's an interesting question. We'll have to wait and see how that works out. Don't ask the USC guys; they will be like, "Of course he's going to play."
They're a little sensitive. We don't talk to those guys right now.
I wonder. I'm going to ask. We'll ask this question on Tuesday about the fingernail paints. What it's going to be this week? We'll ask that on Tuesday. Is there any final thought for the Cal game? Because I don't want to go too much into USC because we have to see what happens too in this game.
Yeah, no, I mean, in terms of Cal, like I said, we've talked about it multiple times. I think it's kind of been what we'd expected this week. I think Oregon was able to move the ball and they needed to move the ball. Their defense kind of stepped up, was able to stifle some, Cal drives despite them moving the ball a little bit. But no, man, it's everything that I needed to see kind of heading into USC week. So, I'm equally, if not more confident heading into next week than I was prior to this week. But yeah, it was a great performance on all end.
Yeah, USC, I think that's probably game over. Coming up here in a second. First and goal, Washington, maybe to go up 10 points.
Yeah, he absolutely caught that too. Yeah, I think that's about all she wrote, unless they can get a stand here, and that would require an SC defense.
And then a quick touchdown or a kickoff return, or then onside. It's most likely it's going to be game over here. But we'll talk about that on Tuesday and have to deal with the sad USC guys. I can't wait to watch this post game if they lose, though.
Oh yeah,
I know. I know they'll just be like, up touchdown, UW up 10. Or
Ben, I think you and I are heading for the same chat after we get off of our stream right now. So I'll see you there tonight.
I do have to comment. I love the look of Alex Grinch right there, just on the sideline, like, jeez. And I'm like, give that man a lifetime extension.
Oh man,
give that man a lifetime extension.
I'm stoked.
David, yeah, trust me. I'm amazed I haven't yet. I am amazed I have not gotten banned.
Yeah, everybody be sure to jump on the USC Voice of College Football post game. It's going to be a great time. If you guys want to sling the shit there, let them know that their defense is absolutely trash, non-existent, horrendous, D2 caliber. They love all of that.
I mean, just think if now we have head-to-head comparisons. So USC went to Cal, gave up 49 points to Cal. We gave up 19 at home, one off a scoop and score. So just say 19 points. So now we went to Washington, gave up 36 total. USC's given up 52. You can tell the difference, and they're at home. So you can tell the difference in the defense levels.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell. Now you have head-to-head comparisons.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to have that. I mean, obviously, they don't go.
Each team plays each other differently.
Exactly, 100%. Exactly what I was trying to say is that everybody has a different game plan coming into every game.
But we do have USC at home. That's the big one. That's what I know USC fans have already said. Yeah. I hate that because they know it's gonna suck. They know it's gonna suck.
Tony, I know I'm going to see you Tuesday, but just to give you a preview, I 100% agree with you with what you got to say. There is zero reason this game doesn't go like we're gonna expect it to come Tuesday.
I do give credit to the USC guys, and we won't go into this much longer. We're gonna wrap this bitch up just in an hour, which actually is short for us. That's actually pretty quick. I do give credit for at least a couple of some of the USC guys who talked about it. They're like, we're gonna get throttled by Oregon. They already knew it a couple weeks ago. They're like, we're done. Like that's a loss. So if they lose to Washington tonight, then they have to go on the road to Oregon, that's a brutal schedule. Like think if we had to play Washington and then USC.
Yeah,
you would say that's pretty brutal. I mean,
it is tough, man. It's it's just in my heart, I have zero sympathy for their schedule. It just, coming into this year, it was Caleb Williams, the second coming of Jesus. USC should walk to a natty title. Everybody's all happy and everything's honky-dory, but it's not that way, and it makes my heart so happy. So, I cannot wait to dig into this come Tuesday.
Oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun week. I'm anticipating it. So I know everyone here, like we said, I've said it 3 times. I'm going to just say it again. Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Central, 7 Pacific, right here on this channel, Oregon Ducks Live Weekly, USC Week. Derek. Who's Derek? I don't know. Promote yourself.
Wait, who's Derek? Everybody give me a follow on Twitter. It's been nice interacting with some of you people that I've been able to meet on here so far. So, yeah, continue to give me some follows. Love to interact, talk some Duck football, talk college football in general. It's a great time. I'll see you there.
And I'm just Ben of Exploring with Ben and Sam here on YouTube. You can just search it, Exploring with Ben and Sam on YouTube. It's the first one that pops up. Or just add Exploring with Ben on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. I post and repost a lot of sports stuff and other things that will piss a lot of people off, but I don't care. I've been warned by Twitter many times to not say certain things or post certain things, and I still ignore them. Whatever. Well, and then you can follow the other guys too. Spaz, the Rocky Classic, who is, I'm guessing he's drunk at a bar by now. And then Sean, who's chilling at home or doing something. I'm not sure what Sean's doing right now, but he's doing something. You can follow him, Chubby Nerd, on TikTok.
Oh, man. I can only imagine what Spaz is doing at this point. So, if...
It's probably better to stop while we're ahead before he decides to try to jump on his phone. Otherwise, it might get a little like...
We're going to have to get out of here real quick if that's the case.
All right, well, everyone, appreciate you joining us here, the post-game show, Tuesday night again, and for the final time, we will give our goodbyes to Cal. Have a good night, everyone.